The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
This is Orioles preview. Orioles closing out their series in Anaheim this afternoon. Coverage here starts at 3:30 for the 4 o'clock first pitch. They got a day off tomorrow, and then they come home for a homestand that begins with the Oakland A's. Kerry Watson is the Vice President of Public Affairs for the Orioles. He's got a program called Adopt a School, which we will get to shortly. But this was a job that was created last year and created for you, Kerry. What were you told when you were brought aboard as Vice President of Public Affairs for the Orioles?
Well, nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you.
Makes me sound pretty special.
Well, they think you are. They give you a big title like that. They must think so.
Yeah. So, look, I think the Orioles, the Baltimore Orioles, are a huge part of our city, right? There's the opportunity to communicate better, to do more for our communities. The profile that I have includes community engagement, creative content, comms, public relations, and of course government affairs. And what I was brought in to do is really bring some connectivity to all of those verticals within the organization, to make sure that we have a strategy for telling our story and becoming a good partner with our city and our community.
You know, when you think about the history of the team, they moved from St. Louis 70 years ago. And in that time, you had a football team leave, another one come in. You had an NBA team, which came for about 10 years and left. The Orioles have been a mainstay. They've been a constant. And the fabric that they are in the community, I mean, they are really an important part, not just of sports in Baltimore, but of the city itself, right?
It truly is. And, you know, there's been some really sad stories to come with sports franchises here in the city. And I said this to several people, and this is no disrespect to our friends at the Ravens. I love the Ravens. We all do. But there's not anyone of a certain age that can say they are lifelong Ravens fans. But there are many people, many people in this city that can say they're lifelong Oriole fans. And I think with that comes a bit of a responsibility to ensure that we stay connected to our fans in our city, knowing that history, knowing what we mean to it.
Yeah, no question. I mean, this was not under your administration, but when we had the Freddie Gray riots some years ago, we even had a game where fans were not even allowed into the ballpark because of the fears. Fortunately, things have gotten better since then, but there still is, you know, a lot of crime. A lot of big cities are facing this with their sports franchises. We've got it here with the Caps and the Wizards. What are the things that are being done to make people feel more comfortable now about coming to Camden Yards?
You know, it's funny that you bring up that game here in Baltimore where there was no crowd, and it was kind of the first iteration and almost prepared us for what we had to observe during COVID, right? It was the first time, at least in my knowledge, that there was a game being played with not a single fan essentially in the stadium, and it was surreal. It was truly a surreal vision. So, look, the city of Baltimore has had its challenges in time. I think the narrative of the city of Baltimore has been told through certain television shows that may not entirely represent the reality of our city. But I think that the Baltimore Orioles in particular, baseball is so unique, right? We play 162 games, 81 at home, before the playoffs begin. We are here every day, and we need our fans to come here every day. It is not like, you know, most of the other sports. You mix in the Caps and the Wizards, they play half the games, still a lot, but you know, they are able to draw into Chinatown, downtown. And we have to create an environment around our park where people actually want to come and see what is potentially one of the very best teams in baseball right now.
You have new ownership, and David Rubenstein, very civic-minded, has donated a lot here in Washington, and Baltimore is his hometown. What kind of conversations have you had with him about reaching those goals that we're talking about here?
He is a philanthropist. You know that. He's might be somewhat famous for leading Carlisle, but I think he's even more famous for his integrity and his desire to make a change even after he leaves this earth. And, he has said to us and to the public that what he wanted to do was do something for his hometown, a town that has given him so much. He got a public education here, went to City College, grew up in very modest means, and this was his chance to give back to his city. I think part of that story is you have a man like David Rubenstein willing to invest in Baltimore. That must tell you something about where Baltimore is headed. I'm a firm believer in what our city is doing and how we're growing, and David just kind of adds to that narrative.
Talking to Kerry Watson, who's the Vice President of Public Affairs for the Orioles. You have a program called Adopt a School. Tell us about that.
So, most companies, most organizations, and certainly most sports franchises have a very particular way of engaging with their community. And there's not that, again, this is not a criticism. This is just a reality. In business, you volunteer, you write a check, you smile for pictures, you feel good about yourself, and you walk away and do it again next year. What we've chosen to do is something different, something deeper, something more strategic, something more meaningful. We are adopting a school in West Baltimore. We have adopted, I should say, a school in West Baltimore named Harlem Park Elementary Middle School. Baltimore, like many cities, has a particular history, a tragic history of redlining, and certain neighborhoods here just haven't received the attention, the resources that it needs. And we have decided that we believe that it's not solely the responsibility of government or public interest to work in a school or in a neighborhood or in a city like this, that private organizations like ours have a responsibility as well. Now, the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore, as you mentioned in the beginning, has a really unique relationship with the city of Baltimore. And, there are only a few major brands that people equate directly to Baltimore, and the Baltimore Orioles are one of them. So, no, we do not teach kids. We do not do field trips per se, but we have a brand that people want to be associated with us. They want to work with us, and we can bring resources to one school. We are not big enough or wealthy enough to do everything that the Baltimore City public school system needs, but we do have enough resources and enough brand power to work on one school and to provide for one school. And we hope that this can be an example in the future for how other organizations who truly want to make a difference in their communities can focus and be strategic with one entity.
It's
something that they can hold.
Interesting you've chosen an elementary school. It's that you want to get to them at a very young age. Is that part of the strategy?
It absolutely is. I mean, kids have choices to make, and they often make those choices when they're not even aware that they're doing it. And if we can impact the life of a 4 or 5-year-old, attach them to us, support them, help them get through middle school and high school, support them as they go through college, and then keep them in our city so they can reinvest with their personal resources, their experiences, maybe come back and work for the Baltimore Orioles one day. That's the type of long-term investment that we are talking about. We can't truly be effective in our city, I don't believe, if we just touch and go. Mm-hmm. It really has to be intentional. It has to be holding them tight, keeping them close to us, and supporting them throughout their lives so they know they have a partner that actually cares for them.
And you also have a long history with the Ripkins of being very invested in youth. I imagine that's part of the long-term strategy as well, right?
It absolutely is. I mean, Cal's now part of the ownership team. He is with us and supporting us through this effort. Their foundation's done tremendous things over the years. And again, this goes back to what I said a little bit ago. Mm-hmm. It's really about attracting to our brand and bringing in resources and partners, nonprofit partners, even government, to focus on this one school and this one community, because that is something that we can actually have an impact.
Last thing, we're talking to Kerry Watson, who's the Vice President of Public Affairs for the Orioles. I don't know what you can share, what you even know at this point, but there is a significant amount of money being invested by the state in fixing up what is already a great ballpark at Camden Yards. What are some of the things that, if you know, long-term that we'll start to see in terms of improvements to the park?
So the park needs improvements, both in the areas where fans don't necessarily feel, infrastructure, and the places that we recognize that there are challenges. I think that in the next year, 2 years, 3 years in particular, you're going to see some of the things that are obvious, right? Scoreboard needs to change. These are types of investment that I know our new ownership group is interested in making. The stadium authority is interested in supporting us in making. So it's going to be substantial, but not so impactful that the beauty of our park is changed significantly. There was a poll early this season, before the season began, that rated us the number one ballpark in Major League Baseball by fans. I get to sit in my office every day and look out my window at this beautiful park, and it's just a remarkable place, and it's some place that I enjoy being for every homestand. And we have a responsibility, and thankful for state support. The stadium is actually owned by the state, but we can do some things that make it more attractive and make it more of a place that people want to come to multiple times a day, because, again, this is a long season and we have a lot of games, and we want people here.
Yeah, well, a ball club that's a half game out of first place and coming home on Friday, probably a pretty good thing for you. So you got something to work with this year for sure, right?
I think so. I think I'll be looking out this window come Friday, and certainly next week with the Yankees coming to town, and nearly every seat will be filled. Absolutely.
Good to talk to you, Kerry. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Kerry Watson, Vice President of Public Affairs. Again, the Adopt a School campaign. They have adopted an elementary school. One interesting strategy on that. Coming up, we'll take a look at what happened last night and what's ahead for a team that is a half game out of first place, but starting to see some really good things. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Tony's coming up at 11 o'clock. This is Orioles preview. Orioles closing out their road trip today in Anaheim. It'll be a 4 o'clock start, coverage here at 3:30 on ESPN 630. They're trying to win the series after taking the first game, but they lost last night 7-4. And it started with a bang. Grayson Rodriguez, who's been solid this year, 3-1 off the loss last night, came into it with a 3-0 record, solid ERA. He gave up a leadoff home run to Mike Trout, and it was the first leadoff homer that Trout hit since 2012. I guess, he hasn't been in the leadoff spot very often, but it was the sixth leadoff homer of his career and the first since September 28th of 2012. Ninth homer of the season ties him for the major league lead. And according to Elias, the 11 years and 208 days is the second longest span between consecutive leadoff homers in history. The longest is 12 years, 286 days by Omar Vizquel. But it was a bad outing for Rodriguez. He was chased in the fifth inning. He had given up all 7 of the runs on 7 hits. He also had walked a batter, did strike out 7, but not a good performance for him at all. But the Orioles did mount a comeback. They got to within 7-4. Ryan O'Hearn was one who drove in 2 runs.
I don't think we're ever out of it. Down by 7 kind of early, and then the mentality is just to kind of find a way to pass the bat, creep it back in, and it's a long game, so you never know. And I don't think we're ever out of any game, so yeah.
As an offense, do you guys try to focus on, you're not putting up 7 runs in one at-bat? You have to kind of take that long view.
Yeah, exactly. I've said it many times, we got a solid lineup 1 through 9, so guys just trying to do their part, get on base and pass the bat. When you're down by, a substantial lead, I feel like that's the only way to do it.
You guys have spent a lot of time ahead the last few days. What was the dugout like with you guys trailing and trying to fight your way back in?
Same, we've been through all kinds of games. We've taken big leads, we come from behind, close games, you name it. So, just one of those nights. We didn't, complete the comeback, but, I think it is what it is. We'll come back tomorrow and get them tomorrow.
Tomorrow now today as they have the 4 o'clock start. As for Rodriguez and what happened to him last night after the good start that he's had this year?
Just caught too much plate, throwing the ball down the middle, a lot of mistakes that were thigh high. Those guys were ready for it.
I guess the Twins, you mentioned that you had some fastball command issues. Did that carry over to this, or was it a little bit different tonight?
Really just missing with the heater down the middle. I know trying to elevate the guys. Obviously, Trout there in the first inning tried to go up with it, just missed right down the middle. Got hurt with it pretty bad. Just left a lot of pitches thigh high.
Is this a start that you can take something from and learn from, or you just kind of dump it and move on?
I think you learn a lot from it. Slider command, a little bad. Obviously missed in with it to righties. Just kind of staying up, spinning a little bit in the zone. Threw some good ones to Sano, but obviously got hurt with a few as well.
When Trout gets you with that lead off, how does that affect your outlook for the next pitch and the rest of the game?
Really you just got to flush it. That's all you can do with it. Obviously, that's a Hall of Fame player. He's going to hit home runs. It's unfortunate. It was off me. But you just got to keep pitching.
As a young pitcher, when you don't have that command that you want early on, are there things you look for or search for within the next few innings?
Just trying to find the corners. Kind of failed to do that. Really don't want to fall behind the hitters. But I think maybe throwing a few more balls would have helped, but just missing down the middle.
Yeah, so not a good night for Grayson Rodriguez as they close the series today. Brandon Hyde, manager of the Orioles, and what he saw from Rodriguez last night.
Well, I just didn't think he executed. Just looking back on the replays, a lot of balls that were kind of middle of the plate, thigh high, wrong parts of the plate to the game plan, and it made him pay for it.
How surprising was that command? For the past 6 months, he's been really great.
Yeah, maybe just an off night for him. He's had a few good starts here to start the year, and tonight for me, just the stuff was fine. Threw some good sliders to Cano, but had a tough time throwing sliders really to anybody else. They were kind of backing up in the middle part of the plate. Poorly executed fastball to Trout there to lead off the game, and just
the bullpen come through today and keep the team in it?
Yeah, we did a nice job out of the pen. We brought the tying run to the plate too at one inning, and Santander just kind of missed one there and we flew out. But I thought we did a nice job battling back. Kind of a tough deficit to come back from.
Some nice contact for Jackson and got that second hit.
Nice to see him get a hit. Yeah, I'm sure that felt good and fun to watch him on the bases.
Yeah, it was the second hit for Jackson Holliday since being called up, his 10th game. He's now 5 for 34 with 18 strikeouts. It's getting some national attention. This was around the horn yesterday as he went into last night's game. 1 for 31 as they kicked it around, led by Tony Reale.
So the super prospect with a brutal start. Clinton, was he called up too soon or too late? Because he was raking into spring and not called up. And should he go back down or work through?
I think Izzy's point about overthinking it is one that happened here. If you know you've got a kid that you think is going to eventually make your big league roster, calling him up, in my opinion, is the right decision, especially if you think he needs more at-bats. He got sent back down because he was 200 points worse against lefties. They didn't think he could do it. He went out a ton of times, so they end up having to call him back, and now it feels like his confidence is shot. Jordan Walker for the Cardinals last year was in a similar situation, but he made the opening day roster, and he ended up making back. I think the O's should just keep the kid on the big league squad. That's the easiest way to handle this.
All right, let's do it here.
Tony, I'm buying that they completely fumbled this. Either he needs to be on the opening day roster or you call him up 2 or 3 months into the season, because now we're at a point where not is he only 1 in 30 in his at-bats, he has 16 strikeouts. Like, this is a case of you're messing with his mental, his psychology at this point. And in baseball and hitting the ball, that is one of the most mental things you can do in sports. And when you're in a slump like this, now they're in a place where they need to go ask him, hey, what do you need from us in order to help you continue here and try to break out of this and succeed? Because you know it's there, and it hasn't been so far.
Well, this should be a great fit for him, a young player with a young, talented roster around him where they can sort of fit him in the ninth spot, let him get used to the big leagues, and then go on from there. But you have to look for signs to say maybe he's a little overwhelmed. And he had an at-bat a couple of days ago, bases loaded, full count, 1 out, and he just watched strike 3 straight down the middle. And it just kind of makes you wonder, hey, maybe he is, as Clinton mentioned, overthinking things at the plate. I don't know if it becomes too much for him, and you might want to send him down, regain his confidence, and bring him back. But it feels like this club would be a club where he can sort of just ride this out and stay with the big leagues.
Yeah, I would keep him up. I think everything you're saying about the concern for his confidence is fair. But the reality is the O's are 7-3 in their last 10, while the best prospect in baseball has been struggling. The best prospect in baseball is still, last I checked, not somebody we think that much less of because of the slump. It feels like a guy who's adjusting to the surface of, Major League Baseball, right? He has the bends, Tony. He came up real quick. I get it. It's hard to adjust. But it's a long season. Pulling the plug on him feels like a dramatic overreaction.
My baby's got the bends. I don't know if that's exactly what you want to say.
And kind of a Harvard reference there. See, Torrey's smart guy. Look, he's being carried by some guys who are having some great years. Colton Cowser's hitting .345. Ryan Mountcastle hitting .333. Adley Rutschman, he could be in the conversation for MVP. He's hitting .323. Gunnar Henderson, who was American League Rookie of the Year last year, off to a good start. .287, 7 homers, 17 runs batted in. So they got guys in the lineup who are carrying him. They did lose last night, but I don't think there's any time to panic. And plus, when they brought him up, they said, we didn't bring him up to send him back down again. So they're going to ride this out for a while, and as long as the team is playing well, they did lose last night, but 7-4 in the last 11 games, not too bad. Again, the wrap-up today, Dean Kramer on the mound for the Orioles. He's 0-2 with a 4.91 ERA, and the Angels go with Tyler Anderson, 2-2, having a great ERA, 1.42. So we'll see what happens today. They're off tomorrow. Then they come home to start a series on Friday night against the A's, and the Yankees are in for 4 next week. And what a battle that's going to be as they battle it out for first place. I want to thank Kerry Watson for joining us today on Orioles Preview, Rex Minturn for running the show, all of you who listen. Tony is next. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.